Good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Weather Brains. Weather Brains, episode number 987. This is the pre show. It's a magical, marvelous time of the program where we do three things. We share boring personal stories, we share humorous anecdotes, and from time to time, we say very outrageous things. All right, so we are on our regular Monday schedule here. This is the 16th of December. And a logistical note here, a housekeeping note. I am off away next week. For those that are new here, I get 3 weeks a year, three. And typically the first week is at the end of June. The second week is around the 1st of August. And the third week is the week of Christmas. I have worked every Thanksgiving since I was in high school in 1973. But the good thing about that, for many years, you get off Christmas. So I will not be working next week. Therefore, we are recording next week's show this Friday morning. Ooh, a Friday morning special. We're going to do it at 10:30 Eastern, 9:30 Central. So for those that like to watch the live stream here, and hey, if you're hearing this, you're watching the live stream because this is not part of the produced audio podcast. So again, we're going to fire it up Friday morning, a Friday morning special at 9:30 Central, 10:30 Eastern this Friday, and that show will be released to the world on Monday, December 23rd. And then we go back on the regular Monday schedule on Monday, December 30th. So again, just a little logistical note there, and kind of winding down the year. It's always so. This is a great week. For those that don't know, I have been doing weather programs in schools for years and years and years. Every day, I'm in 1 to 2 schools a day, and this is always, I would say, the best week. It's the week before Christmas break, and it's crazy. It's a good kind of crazy. So look forward to seeing all the kids. We had a great time today. I was at school, Moody Elementary. Tomorrow, going up to the Huntsville area to see Mill Creek Elementary. Wednesday, got Chelsea Park. Thursday, Breakthrough Charter School down in Marion. And then Friday morning, we'll be doing the show here. And that's it. That's a wrap for the year. We've done with book signings, we're done with everything else. So, again, if you're looking for the actual show content, move the slider over about 5 minutes. We'll start at the top of the hour here. And again, we always have to wait until the television side joins us. We are joined by the local television group that I work for, and they hit right at the top of the hour, and then we'll get this thing cranked up here. So let's see who we can find to join us this week. Honestly, this might be a homegrown show. I need to be better at reading my notes here. Um, let's see. I believe it is a Weather Brains roundtable, which means this is a homegrown show, just us. And sometimes it's good for the soul to do that. It is just good for the soul to do that. We often and we have amazing guests, and it's great to speak with them. But we got some pretty smart people on this show, and I learn from them. And this will give us a chance to kind of share what's on our heart and mind this time of the year. Um, and kind of look forward to what's going on next year. Hopefully, Greg Carbon can join us. Greg, if you've been around here for a long time, Greg typically is on with us every year, right at the end of the year, to go back and do the top 10 weather events of the year. And hopefully, he can join us on our show on the 30th. In fact, I see him lined up, so that's good. Greg is retired from WPC. Neil, you ever hear from Greg Carbon?
No, not anymore. Just last time I think I talked to him was on this show.
I see his pictures. Puts out pictures on social media from Vermont, and it looks like he's enjoying retirement. But he will be on the show with us on the 30th to go back over the top 10 events, and I would assume he's still going to do that for us because that's always one of the highlights of the year is to try and figure out which 10 he will mention. So where are you, Neil? What part of the world are you in here tonight?
I'm up in DC.
Okay,
Yeah. How's my audio?
sounds clean, clean as a whistle.
Nice. I'm slowly breaking in a new laptop. So this whole week I've been reinstalling new software and undoing all the default settings on things I can't stand.
When I was younger, I could not wait to buy new computer equipment. I could not wait. Now it's the last thing I want to do. I mean, I'd rather stick needles in my eyes because of
It's a
what you have to
nightmare.
do. Oh gosh, it's just like, we've got so many hours in a day, and I just feel like now when I fool around with these computers and do things like that, it's not productive. So I run these things until they don't run anymore. Um, in fact, this computer, I had to buy this one because the screen went out, the LCD panel went out on the other one, and so
That's the reason why I had to get a new one was my LCD went out. And I actually that's a funny story. I burnt out the LCD on an earlier MacBook Pro by running the GFS on the laptop. And one of the things I did because I was trying to free up more memory, and so I went in and overrode the system settings and like turned off all the other things that would consume memory. And it turns out that there's actually a setting that activates the fans when it heats up.
ooh.
And I inadvertently turned that off.
You
And
converted that thing into a microwave.
it did. It totally fried the LCD. And so I took it to the
Oh
Apple store
gosh.
and the guy was like, "Did you leave this like in your car in the summer?" And I said, "No." He goes, "Are you a gamer?" I said, "No." He said, "Well, how did you do
I'm
this?"
a
And I said, "I was
I'm a
running
modeler.
a weather model." And I thought they were just going to throw me out of the store.
This is the greatest story I've ever heard. So Neil was running the GFS on a MacBook Pro, and he turned off the cooling fans and burned the thing up. That's outstanding. Wow. So how long would it? How long does it take to run the GFS on a MacBook Pro?
Well, so I had it running at like C96, which is a super low resolution. And I was only running it out to do a 24-hour forecast. So my goal was just to see if I could actually run it at all. And it took about, I guess, maybe 4 or 5 hours to produce a 24-hour forecast at a very low resolution. But it worked.
What was the file size of all the data that you needed to run to run that thing?
Well, not much, but I didn't do the data assimilation step. So I started with an analysis file, which is like the t=0 start file, and initialized it from that. Which, if you actually look at what eats up a lot of the HPC for the models, it's the data assimilation process, not the actual model algorithm
Ah,
that produces the forecast. So it was
okay.
a little bit cheating, but no one had ever run it on any system outside of Incep's hardware at that point. So I was pretty pleased with myself until I broke my computer.
That's the greatest story ever. James Adelard, you ever run the GFS on your laptop?
No, but we did try to run the LFM, I believe, on a PC back in the early days. We got
Limited
frustrated and
fine
mad.
mesh,
Yeah.
LFM V2. Wow. This is before Neil's time. Neil, you ever tinkered with the LFM?
Um, no, but I've been around for it. I mean, I started on the heels of MM4.
Woo.
Uh,
Wow. Wow.
yeah. So I was around before MM5 was a thing.
Wow.
Well, LFM put the
James,
limited in the fine mesh.
James, you ever play with the MRF? Remember the MRF?
Oh yeah.
Uh,
I remember waiting for map 240 to come out every afternoon on the wet Difax
on the
paper. It's like,
Difax.
oh,
Yeah, the
well, the 3 to 5 day
Difax machine.
is here.
Yeah, we during the blizzard of '93, leading up to the blizzard of '93, we were sitting there all hunched over that Difax machine, waiting for these MRF maps to pop out of that thing. Those were interesting days, so long ago. Very few people in the weather business know the smell of a Difax machine. They don't know how to get
It's
their hands wet on that paper.
It's the similar thing of back in the day, the old mimeograph school sheets, where you get those hints,
Oh yeah. Oh
sniff them
yeah.
all up, smelled kind of like
Mimeograph.
Elmer's and solvent.
Wow. And let me welcome our television viewers. We're
On
at the
that
top of the
note,
hours. On that note, we're talking about sniffing chemicals here. And that would be a good show title, but we can't use that because we're not rolling yet. So we have no weather going on here. So let's get this thing going. I got the tracks recording. And here we go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You're listening to WeatherBrains. They're kind of a big deal.
Oh, yes. December, magical season here. Weather Brains episode 987, the weekly show that is all about weather. We are glad that you are here tonight. We're getting set for which should be, I think, a good show. I think we're going to have a homegrown show tonight. That means we're just going to talk without guests. And we have some very smart people on this show, regulars, and there's a lot of things we need to talk about here. So this is going to be a good show. Let me just say up front here, one logistical note. We are going to record next week's show, the week of Christmas, this Friday morning at 10:30 Eastern, 9:30 Central. So for those that like to watch it live, it's a Friday morning special, and we will let that be released to the world on the 23rd, Monday of next week. And then we get back on the regular Monday schedule on the 30th with Greg Carbon. He'll come in and do the meteorological memories of 2024. So let's see, Jen, what is going on in Ohio? How are you?
Hello, I'm good. Much better than last week. I was sick last week. And then I do want to say the week before, we had that really great show about the buddy system. And I just wanted to say that, we can get a lot of junk on social media and we never know what kind of emails we're going to get. But I got two of the sweetest emails because I was uncharacteristically open and very vulnerable. And because it really struck me that show, and I had a couple of great emails. So I just want to put a thank you out to our listeners who are so loyal, and they are really wonderful and loving. And thank you so much for that, and I appreciate it. Weather up here in Ohio was great today. I was actually outside. I went to get my mail in shorts and a t-shirt. It was great, 58 today. So, yeah, hanging in, getting ready to get into the cold once again, James, by the latter half of the week and the weekend.
Yeah, I was out in my tank top and flip flops out here today. I had to,
Oh, yeah.
somehow recreate the television look. But yeah, we hit some places around here. It's 70 today, so that's not bad. Let's go to Rick Smith out in Oklahoma. Rick, what's the weather like out there? What's happening?
It's warm here too. We had highs in the 60s today, even behind a cold front. And that's expected to continue. I'm sure everybody's seen what is it, the 6 to 10 or the 8 to 14 day outlook getting out into the
Red.
Christmas time frame. And there's just lots of red and dark red over the country. So it looks like, I'm not going to complain too much. It would be nice to have that Christmas feel, but I can handle 60s and 70s for sure.
Is that a new mic?
Yes, it is. How's that sound?
It sounds really, really good. Wow,
Good.
that's outstanding.
Early
Audio is
Christmas
tremendous.
present.
nice.
Okay, very good. So Kim beat that. We have a new mic over there. You got a new mic in your place?
I do, but I don't think it sounds as incredible. What do you guys think? My mic, Rick's mic.
They both sound marvelous. They both sound crisp and clear.
All right, I think you guys are being a little generous, but I do want to show you my mic because my mic is colorful and I can actually change its colors, and it could even just
Ooh.
sit here and rotate through colors as we go. If I wanted it to, it's kind of spiffy. So I like colorful things. I admit that was a really strong selling point. So I'm just really glad that it sounds okay.
Now, wait a minute. Show this thing one more time here. We have to see this thing. This is outstanding.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it has this like old school mic vibe to it. And for those who are watching us, or sorry, who are listening and not watching us, it is glowing sort of this yellow orange. But I can, hit buttons and now it has turned green.
It looks like it should be a heater.
Yeah,
Right?
really.
It kind of does. It kind of now with the green, it looks like a bug zapper a little bit.
Yeah.
So, which would have been good for that show if you guys remember about a month and a half ago, where there were flies that I was trying to kill during the whole show. That would have been really beneficial for that. I've got blue, Noah blue. Oh, and then the other Noah blue. Neil knows the exact text codes for those different shades of blue. Anyway, yeah, it's pretty sweet. I like it. So
Well,
glad
so
I sound okay.
Neil top that. What can you do?
Nothing. I've had this mic for 3 years and I still haven't figured out the gain. I go in the live chat and read that people are complaining that it's either blown out or I sound like a church mouse.
Show title. No, well, it sounds great. Yeah, I think our audio is top notch tonight. So, having said that, James, we got a homegrown show tonight, right? Where's Bill Murray? Is he at a pub crawl, 50-cent
I think
beer
he
night
did
at
say.
Hooters? What's the deal?
Yeah, I think you're right. It's got to be right. Didn't you get a frequent flyer miles for that?
I think so. Yeah. And where's
I'm just-
Troy? Troy is missing tonight.
He's doing grades. Final
Oh.
grades, I think.
Okay.
But he does plan to
Okay.
be here, just a little late, right?
Right. That was, I think, kind of quick scanned that email right before I popped on.
We're gonna
So
hold
he
him
will-
to
Oh
that.
yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, I see it now. It's still trying to get caught up, getting final grades out. Okay. He
mean,
has
what are
a
they going to
real
do?
excuse.
Be late with him.
So James, according to my note, it says you're leading this discussion. So I turn the floor over to you.
Well, I don't really know where to start with this. It has been a very eventful year weather-wise. I guess, okay, I want to know something about all six of us on here, and we'll hit Troy with this when he logs on. What question do you ask people that do a job interview with you or are applying for a job?
Ooh, this is good. We should have John Gordon on here to answer that. But I would love to hear everybody's answer to this question. This is going to be good.
I mean, we don't necessarily want to Google somebody and, derail their entire brain, but I know you all have plenty of experience dealing with people and can fess out people with unexpected questions.
Yeah, I have to ask, is this because you may be completing a degree program in the near future and may be interested in, I don't know, thinking about something terrifying like possibly sort of shifting careers?
James is leaving. James is leaving Fox 23. You heard it here first.
Hi. One thing I have learned because I'm old is you never close doors, or if you do, leave a window open, because what sounds like not a great opportunity one day sounds like a tremendous opportunity as our perspectives change from day to day.
It's great advice. And I didn't mean to put you into a corner, but I know we also, you could be asking this also for a lot of reasons. We have a lot of people in our audience who are going between positions, and we have students who listen. And in light of that, I think in my hiring experience, which isn't vast, but I've had the fortune of bringing on some really interesting and talented people. I think what beyond the questions, the specific questions that are asked, if you have a set of talking points of something that you can cover that really describe who you are as a person and what you value, and if you can look back on your experiences and see how you've demonstrated something like dedication, how you persevere, how you work with other people, and find ways to weave those things into whatever question you're asked, that can be really valuable information. And I've come to find that you can have a very brilliant person in front of you, but if you're trying to bring them onto a team, and if they don't have experience working with other people well, or no one can speak to that in their references, maybe you ask yourself some questions. If you're applying for a position where it's a sort of solo analyst role, and people want to see that you are able to be independent, then those are good things to focus on. So a little bit of it is knowing the role and what you'll be expected to do, and to be prepared to sell yourself not just as an individual, but someone who would be good for that position. Rick's sitting there like, I haven't applied for a job in 37 years. What are you talking about? I don't know.
At least, yeah. No, I don't know. It's interesting. Yeah, John Gordon has some of the most outrageous but really good questions, scenarios he puts people through. We could do a whole show just on that. He could do job interview questions to us, and for me it'd be terrifying. But I don't know. We ask some of the standard questions, but being in the weather center where we are, where Kim and I work, and some of you have visited, one of the things we always try to get a handle on is if people that are coming to work in our office really understand the building, the culture, the atmosphere, the fishbowl kind of thing that the weather center can be sometimes. So we'll usually try to ask a question like that. What do you think is the biggest what do you think will be your biggest challenge in working in this office or working in this building? And just to get a sense to see, have they thought about that at all?
So some of you know my one of my things. It's not a question. It's this. And really not this. It's more like a Rice Krispies treat. This happens to be a Lucky Charms kind of treat here. So I think you guys have probably heard me say this before. So I will take a Rice Krispie treat, and it has a really obnoxious purple blue wrapper. I mean, you can't miss it. And what I will do is take the Rice Krispie treat out of the wrapper and eat it. It's a snack. Why not? And then I will place the wrapper on the floor in my office, adjacent to a trash can, before the prospect comes into the office. So the point of that is to see if the job candidate, and you can't miss it, you cannot miss it, will take the time to pick up that wrapper off the floor and put it in the trash can. That is not how you get the job here, but by golly, it might be a tiebreaker. So that's one of my little, and again, it just kind of states the condition of your heart, because I think to be successful in this business, you have to have the heart of a servant. And typically somebody like that would pick up that and put it in the trash can. And the other thing I like to do is to take the same thing I do with the interns. I like to go on a field trip. And I like to talk with the candidates, not sitting in an office. We'll start here, but we'll take a drive or a walk. I like a good walk, but we'll take a drive to the Walmart in Adamsville, which is a working class part of the city. And we will go through the Walmart talking, and I might ask some questions during the Walmart journey, but I will stop and watch the job candidate interact with the people in that Walmart. Most of these people don't look like them. They don't think like them. They don't act like them. They don't have the same education level as they do. They don't vote like them. And the question is, can you handle all of these people in the Walmart, all these people groups? So those are two of my little tricks, the Walmart trick and the Rice Krispie wrapper trick. So if you ever come to apply for a job with me, now you know two of the tricks. So just pick up that thing and put it in the trash can. It's not that hard.
I've not officially had to hire anybody yet. I've talked to volunteers, and I guess my main question is, are you okay working for Tornado Talk and not getting paid is one of the big questions. And luckily I've had a few that are okay with that. But just because we don't make enough money. So the big thing for me is learning about somebody's heart and finding out. So kind of like James, do you have the heart of a servant? Because this is a labor of love that what we're doing. And are you interested in, are you passionate about getting into the tornado history and really diving deep and just trying to learn from that person too? Like because it's a niche thing that we do, but there are a lot of folks that love diving into these events and just trying to find more about their ways of research and what are they interested in? What kind of events are they interested in, and what have they been finding information on, and what have you? And so that's kind of where I would go with my questions. Just where's your heart in telling these stories?
I want to hear Neil's answer to this.
Yeah, we're all looking at Neil.
Yeah, I like to see humility in job interviews with candidates, but I've given this advice to several people, and so far it's always worked out for the better, no matter what the outcome was, is be totally honest about what your plans are and what you think you should be doing at that job, because the worst thing is I think a lot of people get in there and they say what they think that the people doing the interview want to hear. And if what they want to hear and what you want to do aren't the same thing, and you do get the job, you're going to be in for a miserable experience, because you're going to be expected to do something you don't want to do. And if they don't hire you and you're totally honest, then great, you just avoided a potential catastrophe. So there's no downside to doing that in a job interview. And I've done it in a job interview. I actually did an interview. This was a while ago. And I just told them exactly how I thought that they should run things. And they were like, yeah, pass. And then later on, they decided to implement everything I suggested. So, whatever. Someone had to tell them. But I think I saw this interview with Peter Thiel, and someone asked him this question, like, what do you ask people in a job interview? And he said, I always like to ask this question: what's one thing that you believe is true that everyone disagrees with you on? And I thought, wow, that's kind of an interesting question. And then I thought, well, how would I answer that? Because I did have a good answer for a while, until people then started agreeing with me later. And then I couldn't use that as an answer to that question, but it was about the value chain and the weather enterprise. And I said this at this Washington forum about 10 years ago. I said, what are you going to do if a private company like Google or something comes along and just runs the entire value chain from observing systems to model output? And they're like, oh, you're crazy. That's never going to happen. Well, look where we are. They didn't exactly run the value chain, but they certainly did a big bypass. But then, as someone did ask me that, and it was a total Peter Thiel question ripoff, so I told them that I thought tarantulas are cuddly, and no one agrees with me on that. And they quickly moved to the next question.
That is amazing. Yep, definitely. We've show titled. We're 19 minutes and 30 seconds in, and nailed it.
Tarantulas are cuddly, right? That's the show title.
There's no doubt.
Good.
And a subtitle too. That was wonderful. I mean, I'm kind of seeing the commonalities there, and this is good, like you said, Kim, for a lot of prospective people that will be going through this process. You're trying to find some selflessness, obviously aptitude. I did a turn at the NBC station in Dallas Fort Worth, and we were owned by General Electric at the time, so there was a lot of Jack Welch stuff there. Say what you will about Jack and GE, but one of the things he said was hire the attitude and train the aptitude. And there's kind of a lot of truth in that. So I don't know, it's hard. It's a very, you're trying to suss out who is cool under pressure, who can handle when lots of stuff is thrown your way, especially operationally. And they have to be part of a team. I mean, we, at least in broadcasting, is a pretty small team, and this time of year the colds go around, whatever illness, so schedules have to change at a pretty quick notice. And it's interesting that in all my interviews that I've done here 15 years, it's always concentrated on how are you going to fit in with the team. I don't necessarily want you to match our team's culture. I want you to make our team's culture better. And that's it's just hard. And I think with every interviewee, it's just a little different how you approach that if you're observant for them. Um, Weather this year, I guess on Weather Brains, we ought to pivot back to do a little bit of weather instead of interview brains. But that's always, I just like knowing about people, and that has always fascinated me. Um, Biggest weather event of 2000, and yeah, it's December 16th. It looks like most of the fun's going to be over for the year. What's the most interesting weather event to you so far in 2024? And I don't know if everybody's screen's the same order as mine, but we'll start in Birmingham, James.
Well, the most interesting weather event for me is the lack of tornadoes. I mean, that's a huge story where we are. This has been, I would say, the quietest year for tornadoes in 40 to 45 years here. The National Weather Service in Birmingham, up until last week, issued 5 tornado warnings for the whole year. 5, that's it. Normally, they would be at 50, 60, 70, 80, or maybe up to 100. It has been stunningly calm. They did issue one last week, which turned out to be no tornado, just it was a squall line thing, and they tried to catch a little spin up, and there was nothing there. But so it's pretty remarkable to me. Goodness, I will tell you, I don't know if I remember how to do tornado coverage here. You know, this is what I'm known for. This is what I do. This is what they expect me to do. And it's been so long. We actually had one of our meteorologists to leave, Taylor Serralo. She left to go to another TV station. And the new guy said, since I've been in this position, he would be the guy in there with me. We haven't had a single thing happen. So it's been the year of nothing, really, where we are. And we did not have a hurricane on the central Gulf Coast this year. On our Gulf Coast, it affects me directly. We had no tornadoes. We've had no floods. We've had basically nothing. So my story of the year, it's nothing. How about that? And I'm not complaining.
I think
All
we
right,
should have
who's
Rick.
next?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think we should have Rick go next because that is
Yeah.
an exercise in contrast.
Absolutely. I think we got yours and ours and a few other areas tornadoes this year. Our story is a ridiculous number of tornadoes. We're at 148, I just checked, for the state for the year, which is one shy of the record of 149 for the most ever. I think it's interesting if you ask most people if they thought this was the busiest tornado year in history, a lot of people would say, no, are you kidding? But a few places, Barnsdall and Bartlesville and Sulphur and Marietta and Ardmore and Holdenville and South Oklahoma City. I mean, if you were impacted by the tornadoes, but I think to a lot of people, they would be surprised to hear that it was that busy. But I can't even tell you how many tornado warnings we've issued. I know we've issued more than we ever have in any year. We had more tornadoes in April than we've ever had. We had more tornadoes in November than we ever had. And not just, we didn't just break a record by a couple. I think we're up to 34 or something like that when the record was 3 or 4. I can't remember. But yeah, it's the contrast is incredible here because it has been exceptionally busy. And, you know, it wasn't just the spring. I mean, it continued into more of what you would think of, James, over in your area, that November time frame. I tell people it's my thing. I say at every presentation, tornado seasons, January 1st to December 31st, and you know that's holding true this year for sure. So yeah, it's been busy.
On the tornado note, probably for me is how many we've had record tornadoes in Ohio. I was doing a quick search because I hadn't heard the latest count, but this was as of early October, 73 tornadoes in the state of Ohio, and that is nowhere near average. It's probably triple what we should. So I'll have to see what the final count was. And up in my area, it was extremely busy in March. And one of the worst tornadoes was the one that hit Indian Lake up in Logan County. It was an EF3 and had fatalities. That particular cell produced Indian Lake and then angled down and crossed just about 8 miles north of my house and did cause damage up in my county. So that was one of the nights that I was rushing to the basement. I think I was in the basement at least 2 or 3 times this year. And that's the most that's been the case since I've lived in this area for 7 years. So very active here. So I think between Rick and I, we took all of Alabama's tornadoes. It was a crazy start to the year, but it kind of seemed to level out quite a bit through the summer. And then we really didn't have a second season fall with the severe weather, which I'm fine with that, of course.
I wonder if Neil has a retrospective on the hurricane season, especially as compared to the expectation going into it. I know my event that stands out beyond just the craziness that Oklahoma has been is certainly Helene, and that has some very irregular features. For a tropical event, but Neil, close to you, in North Carolina for sure. But as significant as some of these events were, what was the whole season like in our rearview mirror?
I mean, that would be my pick for, probably the biggest, I don't want to say event, maybe lack of events, was the Atlantic bust, basically. I mean, I thought there was going to be a ton of storms forming in, the Atlantic, not necessarily the Gulf, and basically had nothing. And it was weird. That was weird. What was also weird was the repetitive pattern of where they did form. And they just kept taking the same tracks. Like, I don't know, if I'm sure that you could probably run the numbers and calculate that was just probability that it happened. But I wonder if there was some bigger sort of pattern or dynamics driving that. There's obviously there's a lot to learn that we still don't understand.
Neil, you've covered in an earlier show, but it might be worth going through again, that there is the hypothesis among at least in the tropical community, about why things turned out the way they did, and it has to do with the Hunga Tonga eruption, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've read a few papers on it, and it's, when you look at what was different this year versus any other year in the past, that one particular event with the amount of water vapor that eruption, I guess, scattered across the upper atmosphere was a massive differentiator. Now, it's probably a lot of people arguing about, what are the physics and the feedbacks on whether that should amplify events or damp them. But all of the other signals have been there in certain patterns in the past, and that was the one, I guess, variable that was different, that wasn't accounted for. And so I feel like that hypothesis needs to be falsified. And if they can't, then I think that that's likely the driver for a lot of what we saw.
It's an interesting hypothesis. It's certainly been the case that paleoclimatologists, they focus on volcanic eruptions as being causal for a whole host of climate disruptions. So it's a very reasonable hypothesis in my view, in light of, just this very large body of scientific work that's gone on to explain broader scale disruptions and patterns. And I think it's very compelling. It also is something for us to watch in the coming year. I wonder how it's going to affect the predictions for the coming year, when perhaps we'll still have this uncertainty out there. I mean, what's the pace of research in this, Neil? Can we expect to have a reasonable answer by the time the next hurricane season's coming around? Or do you think this is going to be sort of a human judgment problem?
I think it's going to be a judgment problem until they actually get some definitive results. The problem is we don't have a lot of historical analogs like this to look at where we have decent data that was collected. I mean, there's a lot of data that we've collected now, but as far as projections without really good analogs to look at, we're mostly just looking at how do the models behave. Well, the models aren't really initializing the inputs as they should. So you wouldn't expect the long-term projections to be as accurate as they should be. That's one issue. The other thing I have seen is just general projections of how long it's going to take for the stratospheric water vapor levels to come back to normal. And they're talking like somewhere between 15 and 20 years. So we'll know after a couple of seasons if this was the main driver or not. Like if we have multiple seasons in a row, then it's going to become more compelling of a hypothesis. Now, if the water vapor stays elevated next, summer and fall, and we have a crazy hurricane season, then it's back to the dartboard. But we'll see. And I don't know that we've really, we've got one winner of good data, but it's not just it could be that there's this new variable. And then on top of that, how does this new variable interact with like La Nina versus El Nino and all these other patterns? Do we get positive constructive interference or negative destructive interference? I mean, nobody really knows. So it's, we had a pretty good handle on all the signals up until this point, and now all bets are off. So it'll be interesting to see where this goes in the next couple of years.
It's really interesting that you say that there's talk about the effect of this persisting for that long. This might have happened with prior eruptions that were significant, and I just don't know. But was it Mount Pinatubo that erupted in 1889? The year without a summer. That was also when Mary Shelley was in Wisconsin, and she wrote Frankenstein in that year without a summer. It was like July and snowing in Wisconsin. I don't
Krakatoa,
remember.
I think, right?
Was
Was that Krakatoa? Was Pinatubo
that Krakatoa? It may be.
Yeah, Pinatubo was pretty recent.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like in the 80s, I think.
Yeah.
1980s.
Yep, thank you. As I dig back 20 years in my paleoclimate class, but we learned about the immediate shocks, and I don't know what we know or had recorded for the persistent shocks. So if anyone here knows more, so yeah, Krakatoa or Pinatubo, how long did those effects persist? Maybe that's something that we can go to the Google and then come back around to that discussion. But I think, Neil, it's a really interesting question, and I'll be fascinated to see what the Hurricane Center does with their prediction this coming year. In addition to all the different academic groups that try to put forward a prediction. What a tough problem when you have that kind of ambiguity inserted into the process.
Well, it is, and I think not all eruptions are created equal. Like I know that the Hunga Tonga was a massive amount of water vapor. Because it was ocean based, I don't know that the other ones really would. I think they were probably more known for like aerosols, like, I don't know, sulfur dioxide or black carbon or something else that would probably have like a reflecting shortwave radiation in the stratosphere. So that would explain the cooling. And I think that those different sort of aerosols or molecules, if it's water vapor or whatever, they might have different lifespans in the upper atmosphere.
Brilliant and interesting. I want to bring up, I know that I mentioned Helene, and I think it'd be good to come back to that. But before we do that, in our rearview mirror, it also is a really interesting space weather year. And that was something that I know a lot of us experienced as a joy. But it's also worth noting that it's something that maybe is worth us sweating a little bit about and being aware of, and supporting better development going forward. Because I'll tell you what is sensitive to space weather. All of these CubeSat constellations that are going up in low Earth orbit. When you get a geomagnetic storm, it can induce drag on the satellites and pull them down, and they fry in orbit. And it doesn't even necessarily take something like the Gannon storm in May, or an almost equivalently powerful storm that happened in October to bring them down. It can just be like sort of a mid-range solar flare that just lasts for a long time, and accumulatively the drag pulls it down. And we're learning about this as sort of a natural experiment as all of these CubeSats are going up, and we're starting to understand low Earth orbit environment a little bit better. So it's been a fascinating year. This is solar maximum. I think that max was officially declared about a month and a half ago. There was a signature shift in the magnetic field on the sun that should signal a reduction in the frequency of some of these events going on into the next 5 years until it starts to ramp up again in this decadal cycle. But all that said, like I said, it doesn't take a huge event or a whole lot of them to possibly be disruptive. So I want to just put that on the map, that space weather, we're used to thinking about aurora and how beautiful they are, and how amazing was that for us all to see. I loved being able to see it here in Oklahoma. But I'm also really interested as a risk communications scholar in there being sort of a novel source of susceptibility that we haven't had to entertain before in popular culture. But there are places in the world where their internet service providing is going to be from CubeSats. And this is being used in international diplomacy, and it's affecting our GPS technologies. They're also in low Earth orbit. And it's just a really interesting time for that science, which is fairly nascent, because we're growing very dependent on it as we move forward.
I think we need to ask Troy, James, your question, since he just popped on here.
Well, no, I joined us, and Kim was talking about something in 1889. She was rolling all this stuff out when I can't remember what I had for breakfast this morning. So I'm just always impressed by Kim. So.
Of course, I was on television back then, so I remember it well, since I was working in the TV industry. But no, Troy. So the question is, what's the biggest weather event that you've dealt with in your world this year?
I think down here it's been, I would say two things: the ongoing drought that we're seeing in our part of Texas, and other parts of Texas not so much, but we just have had that. And one thing, and I just don't know if this is true or not, or whether it's a gut feeling on my part, is just how difficult this fall has been to forecast precipitation down here. Even the high resolution models have had such a hard time. I was up earlier today, up in parts of Williamson County, north of Austin, and talking to farmers and ranchers, and it's just so dry. We never just can quite get outside the drought. We get a little rain, and we've had a little over the last couple of days, but they just point out, they say, you folks keep saying it's going to rain, and the QPF or the rainfall forecast shows this, and it has just not materialized around here. So hopefully it changes. And we all know, if you know Austin, and most of you do, that it'll change. There'll be a flood one night. I mean, that's just the way it changes down here. You get the flood that hits. But I tell you what scares me even more is the 8 to 14 day outlook for much of the U.S. If you've seen that, and you may have already talked about that. So we'll see how it works out. I am looking forward down here. The big news here: people are looking forward to the cold front tomorrow night, actually Wednesday morning, that passes through here and gets highs back down where they're supposed to be this time of year, in the 60s and lows in the 30s and 40s. So that's something else. That's amazing for the Christmas period. Merry Christmas, everyone.
And we're showing the CPC 8 to 14 day outlook for December 24th through December 30th. And a lot of dark red on that map, a lot of shades of dark red. So, it's got
James,
people buzzing here.
Well, James, let's go to South Florida. I'll go to the Keys. I'll go to
there you go. There you go.
Only place in the country,
Hey, James A. Before the next topic, I've got to just chase a rabbit here. Since we're just on here, we'll chase a rabbit. I want to hear Dr. Jacobs' opinion and comments on this New Jersey drone situation.
Yeah,
That's
I gotta go with that
that's
too.
all
Ooh.
I see. And so Neil, you started here, and we got some smart people. So let's solve this mystery. So go.
I don't know. I mean, I think it's aliens.
Yeah, let's say
Wow.
something and get audited the rest of your life.
Wow.
In trouble with the government.
Yeah, somebody knows something. I mean, there's no way they don't. And
Yeah,
you know, the less whoever knows, if they don't say anything, then that's just, you know, fanning the flames. So why not just double down and just admit it? They've been here this whole time.
yeah. I'm kind of fascinated by what we've heard, and I'm not sure anyone has confirmed it. And if someone comes back and says, Troy, that's not true, it's a internet, but there's been this talk of a nuclear warhead that has gone missing for the last what I guess, Jen, probably the last, since I'd say the last month or two in
Yeah,
the
I heard
northeastern
that.
U.S. And that's the only thing that sort of rings a bell there, that maybe it's being done to kind of seek out where this thing could have ended up. I don't like the idea of that being lost somewhere in this country.
Yeah, that seems kind of hard to lose.
Exactly.
I would hope. I was part of a research project out in the middle of nowhere in the desert. We were in an undisclosed desert in central southwest United States, and
Wow.
we were flying drones, and we were forced to fly drones at night, and everyone thought that, you know, they were UFOs, and it wasn't that we were trying to mess with the local residents. The problem was that when we flew them during the day, the hawks would attack them out of like mid-flight, and so we had GoPro cameras on these things, and the hawks would dive bomb them and then just totally like rip out the electronics while they're. And so you'd have this video of this hawk just like tearing wires out of this thing on the ground like it's some kind of animal. So then then we started flying them at night, and everyone's like, well, I don't know why they need to do these tests at night. They're just trying to agitate the conspiracy theorists.
But it just seems to me that a lot of these videos, it looks like fixed wing aircraft to me.
Yeah, looks like 737s to me in some cases. So.
Yeah, and is it a mass hysteria, or, you know? And again, I've not had time to dabble in this. I get all these questions and I see all this stuff, but I've not had a time to research. But the videos that I see, they just look like, you know, commercial aircraft coming in for a landing in one of the big airports up there.
Well, doesn't everybody agree this thing would not be a huge thing if it were not for social media? So, I mean, it's what's driving it, you know.
Right?
Kim, is it mass hysteria? You're our social expert here. What's the deal?
You know, I don't know that I'd label hysteria, but social contagion of an idea, possibly. So this is what's so interesting. I've seen some of the footage that goes around that's been debunked. Some of it is explainable by the presence of Venus in the sky. Some of it is explainable by aircraft. You know, people are just finally paying attention to the fact that they're on an approach trajectory for an airport, and it's just something coming at them that gets bigger and doesn't change direction in the sky. And it's tough to suss out distance, you know, for an object in the sky, which makes me think about my 4-year-old. We were driving the other day, and she was looking at the moon, saying it was following us. You know, it's like sort of that same problem of perspective and the size of the object, the size of you. As you're traveling, you know, across a distance that you feel is significant, it doesn't, you know, like, it's an interesting thing for our brains to wrap themselves around.
Yeah.
From the time we're young to the time we're old, it just is an interesting thing. But all of that said, I this is just my personal take on some of it. I do wonder when our society, I did wonder when our society was going to reckon with drones, because this has always seemed like a terrible idea to me. I don't know why I'm alone in this, but having the ability to put stuff in the sky that's like completely unmonitored, and you can put stuff on it now. Like they've got flamethrowers on these things. You can have payloads on these things that you can drop on people. Like, why did anyone think this was a good idea? This is terrible. I mean, so the other day, I not to join the conspiracy, but I live 4 miles from an Air Force base as the crow flies.
Yeah.
And I was out in my backyard watching my kids, and I heard a buzzing and looked, and it was certainly drones that were encircling the Air Force base. And I just looked at that and I thought that there's pretty good odds that's just the Air Force doing their own thing, testing their technology and whatever. But man, it made me feel anxious to live by an Air Force base, because it also could be drones that are going to go and drop some stuff on it. And like, we just live in this world now where I don't think it's irrational. I just don't think it's irrational for people to have a sense of concern and fear about this, in part because it's an ambiguous risk. We don't know who all is managing these technologies and what all could be done with them because it's novel. And also, there's a part of it that's just, we don't control it. So the psychometrics of risk are such that things that are uncontrollable risks are things that we really deeply fear. And this is just where I come back to, we always have believed, up until more recent years, that technology was going to make our lives better. And I think we're really reaching a point where the limits are being pushed on that, between social media and just the internet in general, and things like drone technologies. We're going into a bit of a natural experiment right now in the history of humanity. And I take a little bit of an empathetic approach when I see people having anxiety around a novel threat, a novel idea, something we don't know how it's going to bear out in the future. We just don't. This is what we live in now. This is the world we live in.
And it is interesting too. Wright-Patterson Air Force Base actually closed their airspace for several hours today, which would show they did that out of caution and that it wasn't them flying the drone. So it's just, there's so much uncertainty. And I think that, to Kim's point, from a social aspect, there's just a lot of what is real information, what's disinformation, what is true, what is not, and it increases the anxiety, and just, one place is doing one thing and they're seeing it now in different areas, and it's a bizarre it is a bizarre place to be in, for sure.
But Neil started it off, and he told us clearly it's aliens. So there's our answer. So there you go.
Undocumented interplanetary visitors.
They're here. They're messing with the gain on my microphone.
Still?
Apparently.
Showtime.
Maybe just ask them nicely to show you where the gain control is.
Oh, I know where it is. It just doesn't seem to work.
Tell me about. Go ahead. Sorry,
James. Moving on from conspiracy theories and aliens.
Oh.
Now what? What do you have next for us? I was a little worried.
What are you hopeful about in 2025? What gives you hope? This is a season of hope, so. Deep breaths.
Apparently, nobody's hopeful on this show.
There goes Neil. Neil, yeah, have some hope.
I hope for some rain. I don't know. I mean,
I tell you what, I hope I have a lot more time fishing and surfing and not worrying about crazy job stress.
Yeah.
Hope I win the lottery.
Hey.
Don't get hit by an asteroid.
Or a copperhead, or a black widow.
Yeah, I was going to say,
croc, or.
That's the first time ever I've heard Neil tell us about being in an arid environment a few minutes ago. Most of the time he's in a swamp somewhere with 30 alligators or crocodiles and a number of copperheads and water moccasins. or near a beach. So that
Well,
was,
I mean, you can get yourself in trouble in arid environments
yeah,
too. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
if you ever have a chance to go out to like the White Sands Missile Range,
yeah.
there's two interesting things you should check out. One is the golf course. I don't actually play golf, but I went to the golf course just to get a photo next to the sign that says "Watch out for copperheads" on the greens, or
Oh,
rattlesnakes
really?
or something. Yeah, maybe
Really?
it's rattlesnakes. I don't know. They got a big snake problem out there.
Well, the rattlesnakes I can see, but I didn't think copperheads
No, it
abided
wasn't
by that
copperheads.
environment.
It's definitely rattlesnakes.
Okay. Yeah.
The other one is this building called the Human Survivability Laboratory.
Hmm.
And I just wondered,
Sounds like
like,
somewhere Kim would be working, you know.
I don't think the people who went through there had a lot of hope, but let's.
Wow,
Uh,
wow, guys, wow.
Kim, you're right on that comment. That we have to point out the comment Ken made to Neil. That course is one huge sand trap, and I got to think that would be the case if it was around White Sands Missile Base.
So that was one kind of optimism that Troy was looking forward to. I heard rain.
Yeah.
That's a hope that we have. That's good. Oh my goodness. Yeah, Oklahoma James, you said something about, deep breaths, and that's what I very much did when you put that to us. Was I just took a deep breath. I think there are a lot of people who probably react that way when asked about 2025. And this is regardless of political affiliation, whatever. It's just kind of a tough time for a lot of people in a lot
Yes.
of ways. So I think what I have hope in is in the goodness of people that I still see, and that I'll just share, my experience in being in disaster zones. When things get really awful, it's kind of when people become their best. And I do want to remind us all that even if you face tough times, sometimes that's where the purpose of your life can become clear, and that you can contribute and have that meaning because of even the smallest kindness that you show. But it's just where character shines through, and I often find that the character people have is really much better than what we assume. I do believe, because of what I see in those contexts, that people are good. And I know that there have been times in history people have not been great to each other, but I still have confidence that this is where we are as a people, is just wanting to give that goodness. So that's my answer, James, going into 2025. I'm still hopeful for the good side of humanity to be shining through by the time we get to the end of the next year.
I want to echo that with
I,
Kim. Oh, sorry, James, you want to go?
now you go.
I just want to echo that from Kim. Just as I got the opportunity to travel a lot this year and to meet folks along the way, and I met amazing people. And if it's okay, I'd like to plug Tornado Talk just a little bit as a hope for 2025. Um, we finally have a goal, and it's my hope that we will be bringing history back and that people will get hooked on history. And there's a reason for that, because it's important to remember where we've been so we know where we're going, and to move forward and to learn in hopes that we will be able to improve the warning process, improve our communication, everything. And so learning about our tornado history is so important. So it's been a while trying to figure out, where's Tornado Talk going. We're writing stories, and they're amazing stories, but we finally have a goal, and a lot of that came out from the end of October, from traveling all the way through this year of meeting people, that we are going to funnel all of our energy into creating a virtual tornado memorial. And it is going to be looking for what we have estimated as at least 22,000 people that have been killed by tornadoes, from what we know from all the research that's been done, and trying to find those folks. What were their names? Who were they? Where did they live? What were their stories? And it's really taking what we've done with our Tornado Talk stories and just building upon it, building the stepping stones to try to find that information. And it is my hope that we can get a crowdsource effort going where people can participate and share their stories and help fill in the gaps for their loved ones and be able to honor their lives. And my ultimate hope and just my heart for this is that people will find healing. And there are numerous people that have not ever shared their story. It's so hard to do. It's heartbreaking. They just haven't been able to share. But once they're able to do so and honor their family member and be remembered, then I think it brings healing and it hopefully will bring them peace moving forward. And it's not to glorify tornadoes or glorify death or anything like that. It is to bring hope to people to hopefully give them a way to just to really to have that healing. And so that is my hope with this. We're really going to start kickstarting it in January and moving forward with it, and we'll have frequent updates as time goes on. And our story writing will continue. It's just going to look a little bit different. And so that I'll share a little bit more later with my pick of the week. But that is my hope. I'm so my heart is very full with being able to do this and having such great support from all of you here on the panel, but especially Rick and Kim. You guys have been amazing to really support what we're doing and the things that we might be able to find that can actually help with the warning process and social science and all that as we move forward. So this is what I will be doing for the rest of my life.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And you
Thank
really
you.
hit something because stuff comes at us so fast in 2024, 2025. Life moves fast. The news cycle moves fast. Grief does not move fast.
No.
And people need a different time scale altogether to process that. And we, as a society, a Western society, do not give people room to grieve.
Yep, you're 100% right. And to meet people that have never shared their story after 50 years from the super outbreak to, still breaking down after, even if they've shared their story a few times, these, all death is hard, but something about tornado deaths is just, it's so sudden, it's so tragic in many different ways. And but there's also in the memorial, it's focusing in on the fatalities, but it's also looking at the stories of the first responders. And it's sharing the hero stories because what those folks have to go through and the PTSD that occurs after that lasts a lifetime for them. And that's something that they have to mourn, whether you're with the National Weather Service, you're a fireman, a mayor of a town and you're trying to rebuild. It's something that it takes a while to get on the other side of it. And we've had such a great response from this, but we've had great response for years where people write to us and thank us for talking about their family member. And so I think there's also an ancestry genealogy aspect to this too. People are interested about their roots and learning about their family members. And I'm hoping that it'll just be something that will really take off. And I'm excited to step forward in the process.
Jen, one thing that y'all do that so well, you and everyone at Tornado Talk, but it makes me remember that with Dr. Fujita and his surveys that he did, if you recall,
Yeah.
that people are always amazed. He would come into front, he would go and visit with people, and people would say, "Why are you sitting here worried about me?" But he would sit there and talk to people. It's doing the same thing. You're just continuing this, and we're documenting that. And I just think about that and what he did back in the day. And there's some great video. I think it was in, I guess, Dr. Tornado or maybe the PBS special that showed some video of him, in a front yard, basically sitting in a lawn chair next to a destroyed house with people sitting there talking to him. And that's exactly what you've continued to do. And I admire so much what Tornado Talk has done, what y'all have done.
Thank you. I really appreciate that, Troy.
Yeah.
And it's a calling, Jen. This is you're called
is.
to do this, right? You feel called.
I do. Absolutely. I will tell it as many times as I can. I really feel that God's led me to this place. Looking at my history of doing radio and where Tornado Talk has started and where we are now and the opportunity I had this year to go on these trips and meet people and mayors of towns and survivors. And I do feel that I've been led to do this and to share these stories and to crowdsource it. And, and just have people share. I really want to do this, and it's my heart to do it.
And then that's where happiness is when you know what you're called to do and you're able to
Yes.
plug in and do it. And obviously, you're not doing it for money. You're not doing it for glory or fame. You're doing it for these people that have been through so much. So that's a great story. I mean, that's
It is.
good.
Thank you.
So my hope for 2025, I hope optimistic that maybe a lot of us in the weather communication business will get to know each other a little better. As you know, times are changing, and they've been changing for years. This is nothing new. And really, what James does and what I do, it's basically a product of a bygone era. Now, there's always going to be a need for us, but it's going to be in a different form. And, the Ron Burgundy days are over. And more people get weather information now from influencers, TikTokers, YouTubers. And I think at first we arched our back and we hissed at them. And the truth is, more people watch these guys than the Weather Channel, Fox Weather, any of us on local television. They have the audience. You look at politics. Where do people get their political news from? Joe Rogan and Theo Vaughn and these people. And at first it was kind of a laughing thing, but it's not funny anymore. This is where people are consuming media right now. It's not ABC News tonight. No, 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 no. It's over there. And so I'm hoping that we just get to know each other a little better. And I know there's some efforts to make some good things happen with that. But instead of hating each other, maybe we can develop a relationship and that they're reaching all these people. And for all of us, and I know there's some bad actors, absolutely. There's some jabronis that they're doing this, but for a lot of them, they have a good heart and they want to do things right. And we all want to mitigate loss of life during high impact events. So, James A., in answer to your question, I'm hoping that we can all get to know each other a little better and just get along and work for the same cause.
Cheer for the people, not the weather.
Yep. Yep. I would just like to, I don't know. I'm hopeful that maybe we can have constructive discussions in the future and maybe get to the point where we can sit down and have a discussion and maybe decide to meet in the middle somewhere. That's no longer present in this country. All you got to do is say one thing that someone doesn't like and you're canceled. And
we do not compromise well.
No, we don't compromise well. And again, and I know everyone's sick of it, but go with me here. But I think that goes back to critical thought. I think we have got to get down and quit, like James so well said, just, rear up our back and hiss and do all this sort of thing and maybe say, well, let's talk about it a little bit. It seemed like we could get there.
Have a little empathy.
I want to, James A., I got a topic I want to bring. This is going to be the fun part.
Uh-oh.
Can I bring up a topic here?
Absolutely.
I think everybody needs to go on a rant, a pet peeve. There is a burr up your backside about something. What is it? Set yourself free. Just open it up. This is where you can go on a total rant. Traditionally, the best WeatherBrain shows have involved rants, and it clears your head. It just makes you feel better. So, what bugs the snot out of you? And who wants to go first here? I see everybody's going to back away from this one, but I don't.
I'm not gonna back off from it.
Go.
I would like for the people that we elect in Washington to remember why they're there. They're there to represent the people that put them into the office. And they need to remember that. We've gotten away from that in Washington, D.C. The politicians don't even consider, I don't believe anymore. And I'm willing to hear other people's viewpoints on this. But I would like to see them just remember that they represent all of us. And it would be nice every once in a while for some folks in Washington to remember that.
Ooh, that was a heavy reflection.
Mm-hmm.
So, this is, I got a couple of issues here. Number one, the chemtrail people. I mean, it has gotten really, 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 really bad within the last 6 months, and I don't understand it at all. And you know,
Yeah.
I play the chemtrail jingle and but it has moved to the point where they're now making threats, very serious threats to us. And if it's a credible threat, I have to turn it into law enforcement
Yeah.
by nature of my employment agreement because I work in a building with all these other people. But they will list your spouse's name, the name of your children, your address, and they will tell you you are in grave danger if you keep lying to the American people about the government spraying our skies, controlling our minds, controlling the weather, giving us diarrhea or hangnails or whatever, and they say you're in grave danger. And apparently, the chemtrail action team has really gotten big. They come in swarms. And you post a picture of a cirrus cloud, you post a picture of a condensation trail, and they are on you like flies on poop, and they will attack anybody, anybody. And I want to know what happened. What has happened here? And for some of these people, they honestly believe it. For some of the people, they're delusional. For some of the people, they probably have a psychiatric disorder. But for a lot of the people, they honestly believe this in all their heart, which goes back to a point somebody made on here earlier. Nobody knows what truth is anymore. Journalism's collapsed.
Yep.
You know, now if you want to watch a channel that believes what you believe, you're going to go find it and they'll tell you what you want to hear. All the news channels are partisan. Journalism has just gone away. Nobody knows what truth is anymore. And I don't know where it's coming from. But to me, these people need to just calm down.
I mean, is that our educational system that's breaking down? I mean, this is science. I
don't know.
Yeah.
They honestly believe that cirrus clouds don't exist.
Yeah.
Condensation trails don't exist. Everything you see in the sky is chemicals. The government's spraying our skies. They're doing heavy spray operations today. And, you know, it's funny. At first, we make jokes about it, but when they start making these constant threats almost every day,
yep.
You know, they don't say, I'm going to kill you, but they say you're in grave danger if you keep lying to the American public. And you saw this guy being picked off in New York, you know, the United Health guy. What are they going to do? Pick me off out here in the parking lot? They could do that. I'm a very public person that people know where I am. They know where I go. I'm in schools every day. And it's just like, and again, if they pick me off, fine, but I worry about my family, you know? So can you just stop it? Can you just stop it and maybe listen to a credible source and have an open mind where just maybe you could listen to the truth? I don't know. So that's one of my rants. And the other, James A., I'm sorry, I took this down the tubes, but it's free. This is therapeutic. Remember, this is therapy for me, all right? So and I don't know if anybody else on the show has the chemtrail people all over you, but boy, they are all over me. I mean, I don't know what it is, but they love to come after me. And the other thing I've seen with increasing frequency, and I'm pretty sure it's the corporate overlords in the television industry, the old school linear television industry that is going away at some point. It will come into, again, I'm very optimistic on the future for those that want to do what we've done. It will be better than what we've had all of our lives. It will be better. But the old school is going away. But as they try and keep this old model alive, the corporate overlords apparently are going to television meteorologists and demanding that they get their engagement scores up on social media. They need to get their follower count up. They need to get the comments up. They need to get the scores up. And they're basically forcing a lot of local television meteorologists to do two things. Number one is declare these code red weather emergency, first warn, first alert action day. When it's going to be a foggy morning or when it might rain a quarter of an inch. And so you do code red, weather emergency, every time a dog passes gas. Then when you've got a real weather emergency, nobody's going to pay attention. They're sick of it. People are sick of the hype that this stuff brings. And at the same time, they're forcing a lot of these local television meteorologists. The only way to get their engagement scores on social media, what is it? Oh, you grab the 10 to 15 day deterministic model maps that show a snowstorm, a hurricane, an Arctic outbreak, a flood, a tornado outbreak, or something. And these are good people being sucked into this bad game. For example, We had gobs of people. Extreme cold and snow Christmas in the deep South. And obviously that's not going to happen. And yeah, their videos got a gazillion views. And when it doesn't happen, they all come to me. They're mad at me, like I had something to do with it. So here's an idea. Instead of bringing people to these Ron Burgundy newscasts by hyping up events 15 days out that never happened, maybe it's turning them away from them. Maybe it's going the other way. So just stop it. Can we stop this hype with this? Now, James A., I'm sorry, I'm done. I could keep going, but I'll stop now because I feel better. I feel cleansed. Thank you.
You look 10 years younger now.
Yeah.
See how rejuvenating that is to rant? You're 100% on track too. But the people that sent their crazy prediction and got their gazillion views, they monetized their post and they got a ton of money for that. So what's in it for them to not be reaching for engagement with everything?
And again, I said I'm going to stop, but just one more note. My engagement's pretty darn good.
Yeah.
I do not like to comment on what I do. I do not, because I've got so much work to do to be better. But having said that, on the social side over here, my engagement's pretty darn good. And I don't do that stuff. And I honestly think my engagement is so good because people are looking for a credible source of information that doesn't blow up every snow, hurricane, extreme cold, whatever, 15 days in advance. They find it to be credible and reliable. And I think if we all took that approach, maybe your engagement scores will stay up instead of spiking at once on this rogue video of a snowstorm 15 days out that never happens. So, yeah, I think there's room for a straight shooter. And I don't know if y'all know what a straight shooter is, but I am one. And I think there's room for that. Can I be wrong? Absolutely. We're predicting the future. Hey, predicting the future is hard. Even a day in advance, 2 days in advance. Sure, we're going to be wrong. But this business of, predicting these high impact events 15 days out, throwing these model maps out there, it's got to stop. And I'm hoping some corporate somebody is going to hear this. And let me say this too. They've never made me do that. I am so thankful for the people I work for. They've never, ever stuck a gun to my head and made me do that. And we don't do code red, weather emergency, first alert, first warn, code action, impact, stick your head between your legs days. We don't do that here. And I'm so thankful for that.
15 years younger.
Yeah, I feel good now. Yes.
Now, see, the morning meteorologist on my team, Laura Mock, we got ahead of this curve. We saw this impact day thing coming, and we made criteria, and we have multiple colors. So fog is not treated the same way as a high risk severe weather day. All right, I will co-opt on your rant any day about one impact day for every single weather type.
Yes. So anyway, thank you
Rick
for
is very
allowing
quietly
me to.
observing. I think he has a rant.
See, everybody that works for NOAA here, they're not going to say anything because they're afraid they're going to get in trouble. At some point when you get old, you just don't care. I mean, at my age, I don't care.
Well, I'm old and I still care a little bit, but if you would have asked me this question this afternoon when I was sitting on I-35 stuck in traffic for 20 minutes, I could have gone off. But I'm just sitting here listening and thinking. I'll keep thinking. But I agree with everything y'all have all said. I mean, anything I might have is tied somehow to what you just talked about, James, about people's sources of information and what they believe, what they trust, and it's so complicated. But let me get back to you.
Well, I want to again. I'm sorry, Jane. I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to stop. But I want to ask Kim, our social scientist here, what has happened with this chemtrail thing? What has something has changed in the last 6 months to 8 months, where they are vocal. They are verbally threatening. They're agitated. They're very angry, and they honestly believe that they're being poisoned by the government. Where did this come from?
Well, barring in-depth research into this specifically, I can at least speak to some of the basic processes we've seen go on with other issues. And I know it's very tempting to look at things like, oh, the downfall of public education. If people just were science literate, then things would be better. I point to some studies in risk decision science that have shown you can tell people, it like sort of improve their knowledge of science, and actually for people who are more intelligent, or who are more ideologically motivated, they after that intervention treatment, they actually stand their ground more because they're able to cherry pick what you
Yeah.
say to defend their own fort. It's the people who come in, sort of a little bit more laissez-faire, not caring so much, that are movable. But people who do care, who have identity stake in it, they see even more what they want to see. So part of what's gone on, I think, in our society as a whole is just a it's just the deep division. The deep division is what's killing us. And we identify our whole identity is so caught up in these you can sort of perfectly sort people based on any number of things that they believe, what they wear, the words that they say. I have to wonder how much social media has just exposed us to each other so much that those things are just readily identifiable. You consume so much more from so many more people now than you ever did before. And it's made it so easy to do social sorting. In addition to the news, like the selective attending to news information that confirms your pre-existing beliefs, we also live in this social context where, you know, after social media was introduced, we had to still find ways to have uniqueness and have an identity. And I look to I just return to the assumptions of technology that I think we all had. It was easy to be a techno utopian in the 90s, to look at everything that was going on and think, man, improvements in technology are going to just continue to make life better. It was a fundamental assumption even of economic models. That was the thing that would drive um, the expansion of things like the production possibilities curve is an improvement in technology. It's one of those, things that brings you to a higher level of whatever. And we're coming to understand that across all of society, technology might have enabled us to produce more and consume more, but that's led to environmental degradation. It's led to labor abuses. It's led to, the like the fundamental iniquity of society, both within our own country and across countries. That's just only widened. It's it's done this to us in social media, and I don't know if we just evolutionarily, all of this change is happening so much faster than anything that we have ever had to adapt to as a herd of people. I I think that that's such a part of it, is just the rapid pace of change. I'm almost not surprised at the people who vie against change because of how significant and how profound and impactful these changes have been. And people are looking for a boogeyman. They're looking for something to control. They're looking for just something to hold on to. Um, I, I I wish I could say that the chemtrails thing is coming from a simple place, but I think that we're just the most recent victim of a trend that's been going on for some time, and that is the disintegration of trust as people have piled into these camps. The sort of social sorting has gone on because people don't know what else to grasp onto to make the world make sense or to assert their control over it. And they're willing to believe whatever their trusted in-group says, and whether that be, I'm skeptical of everything, it's the government, so it's going to be bad, whatever. I just don't know that what we assume to be the higher order processes of cognition and reasoning through a problem are what has ever driven people to understand something. Sorry, this has been a long rant, but I'm just going to conclude by saying I think that there was something unique about the post-World War II era, both in our country and abroad, that favored the cultivation of science and the spread of scientific ideals through society, just because of where we were after the introduction of the atomic bomb and technology advance in general. I think it favored for a time this collectivist approach, and people were willing to look at scientific evidence and to make decisions based on things like collective well-being and collective good, because it's just what we were, it was the new world we were living in. And I think what we're seeing now is a backlash against that. And I'm going to just leave Kim's wanderings through the history
Kim's
of
trails.
technology and society there.
Trails. There we go.
You're 100% on to that, because as a generation, the greatest generation, everybody chipped in and did what was necessary together to win that war. And I think now we are far more easily entertained, and we want to be entertained. And these things make it really easy to entertain ourselves. And that just seems to be the easy route. And why do I need to think critically when I can just watch this quick video? I self-select my lack of curiosity, and yeah.
Yep.
So I have a rant. If I'm going to take this.
Good.
I'm going to do it.
Gen trails.
It is a gen trail, and it's not a conspiracy theory, so I'm going to move it. Gen trails. I'm going to move in a different direction. And I don't work for NOAA, and hopefully I don't think this will ban me from working from NOAA in the future. It may ban me from other entities, but no,
This is going to be good.
When you asked what gets on my nerves or what I just don't understand, I don't understand, why do we name winter storms? I don't understand that. As far as I know, the National Weather Service does not name winter storms, right? They don't put a name on there, and I don't understand it. I think that it's bothered me for 12 years plus of why that has to happen. I think it brings about. I didn't even know the list. I had to look it up. Did you know we've had Anya already? I didn't even know that. Apparently we have Blair. I don't know if we've had Blair. The only Blair I know is a character from Facts of Life. I don't know Blair. I have never remembered a winter storm by its name hitting
I haven't
me.
either. Yeah.
You know which one I remember? Barely, because I was 5. The blizzard of 78. That's what we just name it because it happened.
Yeah.
Not putting a name on it, I think it increases confusion. I just don't think it's. Why do we? I don't understand it.
Well,
And so
you
my
gotta
baby
remember-
rant is nowhere near James's rant, but that's what gets on my nerves. I don't understand it. Troy.
Well, I agree completely with you on that. I don't understand it either. And of course, if I'm not mistaken, someone correct me, but that originally came from the media, correct? The Weather Channel. Yeah.
Yeah.
The naming of the storms. And I don't know anyone that is involved in meteorology and what that really likes the use of the names for winter storms. I'm with Jen on that rant. So
Yeah, it's just a baby rant from little old me.
Hey.
So
How would you pick the criteria for that, Jen? If you wanted to name them, I mean, I don't know how you would start to do that. What's the criteria?
no, that's
exactly, because they're so different
Yeah.
than a tropical system. It's just different because how do you determine if it's a Colorado Rockies storm, and does it have to hit a certain area? And what about a lake effect event?
Yeah.
Or what if it's a storm that comes through and then it causes flooding and then it's a lake effect? I don't know. It's too multifaceted. Kim, what were you going to say? I'm really curious to get your thoughts.
Oh, all I was going to say is I think we just all need to be so impressed that Jen did in fact have it within her to have a rant. Congratulations, Jen.
Yes.
I'm
Thank
so
you.
proud
Yes.
of you.
I appreciate that. I tried.
Neil, do you have a rant?
Yeah,
Oh yeah. Oh
I
yeah.
was hoping you wouldn't call me first because I couldn't figure out like which rant I wanted to highlight.
Oh yes. Let's hear them all.
I don't know. I hate everything about social media.
Yes.
I don't like the mainstream media because they're biased. I mean, I just basically just realized that I think I hate all forms of media. But I think Kim has a point with the division. It's follow the money. Hate drives clicks and views, and the revenue projections bear that out. And that's what people are doing. Maybe they have a fiduciary responsibility to piss people off. I don't know. But that's actually not my rant. My rant is this tendency for people nowadays to shut down open debate on issues. Like they hear something they don't agree with, they just say, well, you believe XYZ, I don't have to debate you. And I want to remind everyone that in classical debate philosophy, ad hominem attacks are considered a fallacy. And if you think someone's position is stupid or wrong, then you shouldn't not debate them. You should debate them because in theory, it should be pretty easy to defeat their argument with logic. I think these people just don't want to believe it, and they use ad hominem attacks because they're afraid that their position, they can't actually win it in a legitimate debate. It's anti-science, it's anti-knowledge, it's anti-progress, and it's nothing new. I mean, back in the day, they used to burn people at the stake for questioning the consensus, but that's not how science works.
No.
I wish people would get past that, but I think social media and this bandwagon effect and knee-jerk reactions and canceling people is so effective that it's the path of least resistance. People are too intellectually lazy to have a legitimate debate. They just want to call you out and cancel you and then move on. And humanity is going to get dumber as a result. All right, I'm done.
I mean, you're not wrong at all.
No, not at all.
But, and I think I put in chat, it's just easier.
Yeah,
you have to think less. You can't.
Yeah,
you can
right.
turn off cerebral cycles and just hate.
Yeah,
it's gotten to the point where now you have to push all this weather information out. You got to get on the right wing network, you got to get on the left wing network, and they all run from each other, like you say, Neil. And it's easier to get in these echo chambers where you hear what you want to hear. You don't have to debate anybody or think about anything. They all think like me. I like to listen to people with different opinions. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, the echo chamber thing is fascinating to me because I'm not on any social media. And so then when I do go to these websites, I don't have a digital profile. And I constantly interact with people who think that the entire universe agrees with them. And it's a function of the fact that these systems have algorithms that monitor your preferences. And that constantly gives you this confirmation bias of feeding you back things it thinks you want to read and see. So then in your brain, you're just like, I'm right. Of course I'm right. Everybody I interact with on social media agrees with me. Meanwhile, there's like an entire universe of people who don't agree with you. You just aren't being shown that because of these algorithms. And I think that that's, on one hand, it's driven by ad revenue and these systems knowing that if they show you stuff you agree with, you're more likely to click on it. On the other hand, it's messing with people's ability to have like a rational thought process.
It gets old. I mean, I post on Blue Sky.
Yep.
And I'm called by a lot of people a libtard and communist for posting on Blue Sky. So you go post on X, and then you're called a denier or some type of phobe because you're posting over there. And it's after a while, can we just stop this? It just gets really old. It's annoying and I'm here to serve everybody. I'm here to serve everybody. I like to listen to everybody. I might disagree with you, but I want you to be my friend. Whatever happened to that? I like to listen to differing opinions. So I totally agree. You got a thumbs up from me.
Well, we got, I will tell you, we are trending somewhat on X at this point with this show. And I won't mention full handles or names, but Jack has just posted tonight's WeatherBrains episode, may be one of the best I've ever seen. I laugh so much. It's hysterical. Go, James. We love a good rant. Thank you, Jack.
Yeah, I'm sure inevitably somebody's going to get in trouble for something we've said here, but that makes it fun, you know? I mean, come on. I mean, you cannot hurt my feelings because I have no feelings left to hurt. None. Zero. So there we go.
I keep doing the little EKG on my Apple Watch, and it says source not found.
Uh-oh.
There's a heartless person here.
All right.
No,
we gotta pause, James. Anything else we need to do real quick before we pause here?
No, I don't. Jen, do you have email?
Okay. Yeah, I can do a couple of email. We can do
Yeah. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to Tony Rice, and we're thankful for Tony and his astronomy report. We're going to hear from Jen and This Week in Tornado History. We will have a little email this week and picks of the week as WeatherBrains rolls along.
Looking beyond the atmosphere, here's Tony Rice with your astronomy outlook.
The solstice arrives this Saturday, December 21st. While this might look like a day-long event on your calendar, it's actually an instantaneous one, occurring at 4:20 a.m. Eastern as the sun is directly over the Tropic of Capricorn, ending that subsolar point's southerly migration over the year. This day is known as the shortest day. But what does that actually mean? The definition here is referring to the amount of time that the sun spends above the horizon. Measured from the center of the sun's disk, here in North Carolina, the sun is above the horizon for just shy of 9 hours and 44 minutes. In June, that rises, pun intended, to just over 14 hours 35 minutes. Now, it might make sense that you'd need the latest sunrise and earliest sunset to produce that shortest day, but that actually happened back in early November and early December, respectively. Why? Well, the simplest answer is everything out there is still moving. The Earth around the sun and the Earth on its axis. Now, the exact dates of those sunrise and sunset extremes, as well as the exact time the sun spends above the horizon, that varies by latitude, with more northerly points seeing less of the sun, of course. But there's other ways to measure a day, and that depends on which reference point you pick. The 24-hour definition we're most familiar with comes from our clocks, of course. But in reality, the amount of time required for the Earth to complete a rotation, it varies. Not by much, but it does vary. Imagine you're watching the Earth's rotation from a position directly above the poles. How long would it take for a given point to rotate around to that same position? That's actually about a quarter to a third of a millisecond, short of 24 hours this time of year. According to the International Earth Rotation and Reference Service System, the research body tasked with keeping track of this sort of thing. But there's other ways to measure a day. Observing from Earth and using the sun as a reference point, specifically when it reaches the highest point above the horizon, also known as solar noon. And Saturday is actually the beginning of the longest day by that measurement. Solar noon Saturday to solar noon Sunday is 29.9 seconds longer than 24 hours. Everybody confused? Why all the variance? Earth, like any other body, is wobbling a bit. And the moon is also very gradually slowing the Earth's rotation because of friction produced by the tides. The distance between the Earth and moon, thus gravitational forces, vary each day. So does the Earth-Sun distance, causing its orbital speed to slow down and speed up, depending on the time of year. Earth is actually at its fastest and near its closest point to the Sun around this time of year. It reaches that closest point, perihelion, on January 4th, a distance of a mere 91.4 million miles. That's your astronomy outlook. Follow me at RTP Hoagie for more spacey stuff like this.
This week in tornado history, 24 tornadoes were confirmed on December 16th, 2000. Half of those were in the state of Alabama, including the strongest of the day. It was a devastating F4 that pushed 18 miles through Tuscaloosa County. 11 were killed and 144 were injured. The tornado developed in the southwestern part of the county on the west side of the Black Warrior River and moved to the northeast. It hit home south of Shelton State Community College. As it crossed State Route 69, it hit a shopping center, including a Winn-Dixie. East of this area, a residential area was struck. At US 82, a number of mobile homes were destroyed and several of the deaths occurred here. There was minor damage to the JVC manufacturing facility at Interstate 2059. At exit 77 of this interstate, several hotels, fast food restaurants, and truck stops were damaged and several cars overturned. 9 fatalities occurred in mobile homes, 1 in a vehicle and 1 in a commercial building converted to residential use. A photo made its way to many newspapers after this event occurred. It was taken by Michael E. Palmer of the Tuscaloosa News. It showed Michael Harris carrying the body of an unconscious 6-year-old girl from her damaged mobile home. He rescued her from the rubble. That little girl is now a young woman with a family of her own. Her name, Whitney Crowder Daly. Tragically, Whitney lost her father and baby brother that horrible day. Her brother was the youngest victim of this tornado.
All right. Time to dig into the email inbox, and just maybe we've got something to read this week.
All right. Quick note about the email. Something happened in early December. I don't know what has happened again, but our email's acting weird. So if you write to us, please put your name and then also put your email address, because currently I cannot write you back. And we try to do that. So something's happened. I think that's why Bill's not here tonight. He wanted to avoid this discussion. I'm just kidding. But something's happened weird. But thank you, everybody, for writing. We are getting your emails. We just may not know that it's you, or I can't write you back. But a couple of weeks ago, we did get an email from Anna Poe, and I just wanted to let her know we got your email and just brought up some things about the shift work stuff that we were talking about and how hard that is, and trying to retain people, when they're working, it's a 24/7 operations, especially with severe weather. And she had some really good thoughts in there, and just was curious, can we just threw out some ideas of possibility of working shifts out by employees' natural rhythm, just kind of learning their patterns and what folks are used to. I mean, it's can you have more of a set schedule when the weather isn't acting up, more quiet periods and what have you. So thank you so much for your email and just kind of throwing out some ideas. We got an email from Steve Holmes about the 100th anniversary of the Tri-State event. Man, that's one I really want to dive into quite a bit. Clint, you sent us a METAR comic. Thank you for that. And also we got our friend James Lewis, who does a great job at just sending us stories and his thoughts. So we got that today. Thank you for that. I want to just focus in on one note from Steve Holmes again, who wrote to us. And this had to do with the show last week. And he was and I wasn't on the show. So those who were, if you could comment, we talked about the Warn-On system. And he was, I guess, hoping we would have talked a little bit more from an emergency manager's point of view. And then he brought up here, because he said, with an hour or more of lead time, you're talking hurricane evac on a smaller scale. Will that involve contraflow, interstates, closing toll booths, what have you? And then he was curious about Kim's study on desired lead time. So, Kim, did you see that email come in today? I didn't know if you had any comments.
I did, but it was right before the show. So he specifically referenced another study where somebody had looked at some kind of notion of ideal lead time, and he pointed out that we had come to different conclusions about what people favor as an ideal lead time, and that could be, without going back and looking at the exact methodology of the other study, it could be owing to a number of factors. And this is where I really encourage people, when you get something that's a social science finding, look at how they did their work, because the methods can have a lot to do with what you find. I have a suspicion that there could be something different about the way the question was asked, or the way that the reporting was done on the statistics. It could be the difference between that study reported a mean. I think we reported a median. And you just look at the distribution of what people offer. Mean or median might be more appropriate for different reasons. There's just a lot of things that could have gone on to make those things different. What that showcases to me is that this is something that we would probably do well to use multiple methods to get additional estimates, and use different methods, use a variety of different kinds of things to try to get at the idea. I will also say that the Warn on Forecast program, we did have David Hogg, an emergency manager, on, and he was presenting what emergency managers are doing with the system and thinking about. And there's not necessarily a lot of concern, I think, at this point about mass evacuations. We did see a mass evacuation in Oklahoma once that was very troubling. And I had a postdoc at NSSL who looked both in Oklahoma and in some other places across the country to see, can we discern any kind of signal? Like, do people evacuate ahead of tornadoes? Is that a thing? And what we showed in that paper is that there's some indication that people do. There's some subset of people who do. So there is some concern about, if you were to increase the lead time into that time frame, could we see mass panicked evacuations? But the thing is that in the real world, we're not seeing it. And even if there are some kinds of evacuations going on, orchestrating that is just, it's not tenable. And in most kinds of severe weather events, I think, people evacuating, it's a really tough thing. We don't even want to recommend it because there's most often storms around an environment. You could drive right into another storm. It's just one of those things that, good question to ask. Good question. I don't know that we have enough real world evidence to be so worried about it that emergency managers would look at Warn on Forecast and need to be planning at that level for something like that. So good question.
Awesome. That's great. I'm going to put up for a vote that we switch the narrative on chemtrails officially. And when we play our sounder, that we play it after Kim goes on an awesome question and answer period and she gives her chemtrail. I think that's when we should play the chemtrail sounder.
Yes.
I think that would be fantastic. We'll completely switch the whole thing. It's about Kim, our Kim, not all the other crap.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you for sending your emails, your questions, your suggestions for the show guests. I know that Bill's working on that for it's already starting for early next year. And I'm trying to get somebody for Friday that I think will be really cool if I can get them on the show. So I'm working on it. But thank you for your emails. And again, please give your name and your email address for at least right now until we figure out what in the world's going on. Back to you, Span.
Yeah, no doubt that's where Bill Murray is. He's trying to figure out the email situation.
Yeah.
So let's do picks of the week. This is where we go around the horn and share something weather related. Let me just share mine up front because Kim's This Week in Tornado History dealt with a tornado that occurred on this date. We're doing the show on the 16th of December, 24 years ago in the year 2000. And this was a really, really, really rough situation. It was an F4, came through Tuscaloosa 9 days before Christmas on a Saturday. People were shopping, and we're very fortunate that we got away with only 11 fatalities with that. But you mentioned, Jen, in your report, that iconic photograph of this man, Michael Harris, and it looked like he was carrying out the lifeless body of a 6-year-old child. The child's dad died, and her baby brother died, but she lived. And by golly, she's doing just fine. Every year on the 16th of December, I communicate with her. Her name's Whitney Daly now. Her name was Whitney Crowder, of course, back then. And she sent me a new photograph of her precious 5-year-old child. And so my pick of the week, it's going to be a link to a tweet that I put out showing the original photograph of Michael Harris carrying out Whitney. And by the way, Michael just doesn't want any publicity. People say, how come you don't tell his story? Well, I respect people's privacy, and he just doesn't want to talk about it, which I totally understand. But anyway, it's a new picture of Whitney and what she looks like today and her 5-year-old child. So that is my pick of the week. And Jen, let me just bounce it back over to you while we're talking here. What's your pick of the week this week? Go.
So my pick of the week is just the link to our launch of the virtual tornado memorial, so folks can learn a little bit more about the goals of what we're doing. And we launched it last week, and just if you want to just learn more about it and find out ways you can support, and just follow us on social media so we can continue to give you updates on how we're doing. But we're really right now we're taking a deep dive into GUN, and that's what we're working on now. We've been working with the mayor to try to work on that narrative, and so we're going to really spearhead this next stage by early next year.
By the way, I saw Mayor Phil the other day, Jen.
Oh, you did? Oh.
I spoke at a big Alabama Power Company function at their headquarters downtown, and he was in the room. I spotted the guy right away because best looking hair in the room. That Mayor Phil has the best hair of any mayor in America, I will say. But anyway, all the links will be up on the website, weatherbrains.com. Rick Smith, you always have a good pick of the week. So what you got?
Well, I didn't go on a rant earlier, but one of my mini rants is people that get so bent out of shape about tornado ratings and they want it like 5 minutes ago. Well, my pick is the current running list of 2024 tornadoes in Oklahoma, all 148 of them. We've discovered that the quickest way to get more reports is to post a map or a list of reports, because people then like, wait a minute, you're whatever, you didn't put my tornado in there. So anyway, we're still at it. We just the other day, I added a tornado from May to the official database. So you can't do this all in one day or 1 week or even 1 month. It takes a long time. So that's not even the complete list, but you can see the very latest one we have there, that link.
Excellent. Again, this will be up on weatherbrains.com. James Adelot, what's your pick of the week?
The AMS has updated their where people go to get weather forecast, and it does have some very interesting information. 317 billion times a member of the U.S. public accessed a weather forecast last year, or I guess 20, whatever the last year was. The estimated monetary value of those forecasts is 102 billion per year. But here's the strange thing. The percentage of the surveyed population who said they never used weather forecasts has increased from 3.6% in 2006 to 9.15% in 2022. So 10% of the country just doesn't even want a forecast. They're not going to look for one.
Don't even pay attention. Wow. Yep. Wow. That's
disturbing.
And
be empathetic and be curious. Be kind.
Yeah, and we need to do a deep dive into that survey. I will be doing that this week, but that's some very interesting stuff. All right, Neil, give us a good pick of the week.
My pick of the week is the AMS Science Policy Colloquium. It's in the summer. It runs June 1st through June 6th. I'm currently this week helping AMS do the Climate Policy Colloquium. But it's a pretty cool opportunity. I spent a week in DC. You talk to Hill staff, talk to White House folks, all sorts of different people in DC about the legislative process, how to make policy, how inside baseball DC works. It's pretty awesome. And registration just opened for the 2025 colloquium.
Excellent. All right. Thanks so much, Neil. Kim, give us a good pick.
So my pick of the week, it's admittedly a little bit sad, but friends of the show may recall Dr. Jana Hauser. She was on our show earlier this year talking about her research in tornado genesis. She's a member of the faculty at Ohio State University. And unfortunately, as I understand it, she had a house fire this weekend, and it's very possible that she and her family lost everything right before Christmas. She has 3 young children, and they're all okay. I guess there was a lithium battery they were charging, and it exploded. And now everything's gone. So there's a GoFundMe that one of her graduate students set up for her in the immediate aftermath of this. And I think that's a testament to just how loved she is. She's just this wonderful human being. And we are getting into, Christmas. And if you have it, in your means and in your heart to try to help somebody in this community that has found themselves in an awful place and who always just does everything she can to help other people, I would really encourage you just thinking about putting something forward for her family.
Wow, that's incredible. And that's a great pick. And again, this is the season to give. As I get older, I like to give things. When I was a kid, you want to get, now you want to give. So this is a great chance. So that's a great pick. Thank you so much, Kim. All right, Troy, give us something.
I'm kind of going on today's weather. Courtesy of Texas Storm Chasers and Jason Cooley on their X. If you saw this is a rotation. Some great video over DFW Airport in the about 4:30 to 5 o'clock hour today. And it's some of the prettiest base stuff you've ever seen. And I mean, you could be 100 feet from your iPhone and tell that's rotation. the interesting thing was, I think that was the only severe thunderstorm warning that DFW or Fort Worth office issued this afternoon for out in northwest Dallas County or that area around DFW. The observers at the contract weather office there picked up, I think, 1/2 inch diameter hail. The winds were only in the 30s and wind gusts. But that line of storms is back over parts of Arkansas into western Tennessee and North Mississippi now. And last few minutes, can't really make it my pick of the week, but last few minutes, really a nice little Boeing segment right now as we're live, just north of Oxford, Mississippi, moving down toward Tupelo. And the National Weather Service in Memphis has issued a severe thunderstorm warning. Here we are on the 16th day of December. But the video earlier from DFW, my pick of the week.
Good deal. And again, these will be up on weatherbrains.com. And again, a reminder that we will be recording next week's show this Friday morning at 10:30 Eastern, 9:30 Central. So a Friday morning special is coming up, and then we'll get back to the regular schedule next week. Listen, if you're new here, we're typically on the air Monday nights at 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Central. You can watch us live. YouTube.com/weatherbrains. But we know that most of you listen, which is great. And if you want to get in touch with us, the email address, it is email@weatherbrains.com. And remember to put the supplemental information to be sure we get your name and email address right. But we got to run here on behalf of the entire WeatherBrains crew. I'm James Spann. Thanks for listening. Have a great week and God bless. All right. Hopefully we didn't get in trouble with those rants.
That was fun.
We'll find out.
Yep.
All right, guys. We'll meet again